Coming up on this week's show, Lisa joins us to talk about some Spec Fic book recommendations.
This is the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for avid readers and passionate fans of gay romance fiction. Each week, we bring you exclusive author interviews, book recommendations, and explore the latest in gay pop culture.
Welcome to episode 183 of the Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com, and with me as always is my co-host and husband, Mr. Will Knauss. This episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by our remarkable community on Patreon. We'll have more information on how you can join them at the end of the show, along with a sneak peek of what we have coming up for you next week.
I hope everyone had a fantastic week full of great books. I had that sort of annoying thing happen to me where I picked up a book and it wasn't what I was looking for, so I had to set it down. And that actually happened twice, so it was doubly annoying. But eventually, I found a book, like Goldilocks, I eventually found a book that made me extremely happy, and I cannot wait to talk about that. That'll be coming up in just a few seconds. You, sir, have been doing some writing this week.
I have been. It's Christmas in April, because, you know, that's what you have to do if you're planning to do a holiday book. So I've been off in Christmas land, trying to put together a holiday story that I want to submit coming up in the next few weeks. So we'll see how that sorts itself out. We're off on a trip next week, which will be exciting. We're going to be down at the LA Times Festival of Books, which comes up this following weekend on the USC Campus. Now, Dreamspinner Press is going to be at booth 141, and they've got some author signings set up. On Saturday, you can catch R.L. Merrill at 11 a.m., Brew Baker at 1. Kim Fielding and Venona Keys will be signing at 3 p.m. On Sunday, S.A. Stovall is going to sign at 11, Reese Ford at 1, and hey, look, I'm signing at 3.
Cool.
Yay. And we're going to be doing some podcast stuff while we're there. We're definitely going to be checking in with the people over at Interlude Press as well. They're going to be at 153. I'm already anticipating having a major fanboy moment because Julian Winters is going to be there, and I so loved his book, Running with Lions, and we're also going to get a sneak peek of his new book, coming out in September. Laura Stone and Aaron Finnegan are also going to be there for them, so if you're around the LA Times Festival of Books, seek us out, because we would love to say hello to you, wouldn't we?
Of course we would.
Also, a little sad moment of passing this week. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend wrapped up on the CW. Made me sad, but also very happy at the same time. I've enjoyed these 4 years of this. I mean, what do you call it? A musical comedy dramedy kind of show? For those who've never seen it, let's see if I can wrap it up really quickly. Rebecca Bunch is this girl who moves to West Covina, California, because she wants to get together with the guy that she hasn't seen since high school. And that doesn't go too well because she stalks him, and then she goes through all of this looking for love and dealing with her mental health issues, and it's all very funny, and has all this wonderful musical theater type soundtrack to it. And I was thoroughly happy with how the finale turned out and the awesome concert the CW gave after it. If you've never watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, it does stream on Netflix, and this final season should hit Netflix by the end of the month, for sure, by the way that they release. And it was just totally satisfying. How did you feel about the finale and the wrap-up season?
I think the final season took some interesting directions. I actually think of the 4 seasons of the television show, this fourth and final was maybe not necessarily the most serious. I mean, I think they tackled the most difficult subjects of the show's run, but that doesn't make it any less funny or entertaining or enjoyable. So I really enjoyed everything that Rachel Bloom came up with over the last 4 years. I think from everything I've seen online, she's very happy with the direction the show took over its 4-season run. And I think they wrapped everything up in a pretty entertaining, intelligent bow. So I was very happy with where all of the characters ended in their stories.
Yeah. So again, if you want to check that out, look for it all on Netflix. By the end of the month, you can check out all 4 seasons.
High school hockey player? Computer whiz? Covert agent? Theo Reese's life is split between being a normal teenager and a secret agent who goes by the codename Winger. After years of providing mission support from behind his keyboard, he's thrust into an unexpected world of adventure and danger. In Audio Assault, the third thrilling book in the codename Winger series by Jeff Adams, a family friend needs urgent help. Theo is off to New York City, where he uncovers an insidious plot. Popular song files have been modified to steal personal data and emit a tone that drives some listeners into a homicidal rage. Theo races against the clock to stop the music from causing worldwide chaos. Anna at Gay Book Reviews says, "The twists the plot took were so unexpected and exciting that I just couldn't put it down." Get Audio Assault, an ebook or paperback, at Amazon and other online retailers.
So the book I want to talk about this week is Arctic Sun by Annabeth Albert, and this is the first book in her brand new Frozen Hearts series. And I've already spoken about, I think it was a couple weeks back now, how much I was looking forward to this book. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. I was very, very happy reading this book. Okay, so the story is about an Alaskan bush pilot named Griffin, and he is tasked with taking a tour group into the wilds of Alaska. One of the group members is a guy named River, and he is a former male model turned inspirational travel writer, and he's gathering information for his next book. Picture, if you will, sort of like it's got photography and inspirational sayings, sort of like, the books he does is sort of like Eat, Pray, Love, that kind of vibe. Okay. There's an immediate attraction and chemistry between them, and over the course of the week, as they spend more and more time together, they begin to fall for one another. And one of the many things that drew me into Arctic Sun is that Griff and River are two, really interesting, compelling, and genuinely dimensional characters with actual lives. And by that, I mean that they're not just like cardboard cutouts going through the motions, playing out like a standard romantic plot line. These two characters, both of them have faced challenges in the past, and they've overcome them. And through emotionally intelligent conversations, they both work to figure out how they can move forward together. That's really what I think the core of the book is all about, and what I love most about it. So real quickly, I want to talk about the trigger warnings that are at the front of the book. Both of these characters, as I've mentioned, have dealt with some stuff in the past, and I think that adds depth and dimension to them. Griff is working on his sobriety, and River has had an eating disorder. It's part of his modeling past that he's, still dealing with the repercussions of. And I don't want the trigger warnings to put anyone off. If these things are difficult subject matters for anyone reading, certainly proceed with caution. But I want to make sure that those subjects aren't the thrust of the story. Annabeth doesn't wallow in exploitative angst and bleh. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be recommending this book if that was the case. I think, as I mentioned, is the two characters both see in one another the struggles that they've had in the past, and there's a certain kinship that each of them has because of that. So it's dealt with in a very forthright way, in an intelligent way, in a sensitive way. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes that. And after the tour is over, our two heroes make plans to meet in Vancouver. And River is going to be hanging out with some old friends from his modeling days. And Griff's visit is going to sort of be a real-world road test to see if their relationship can work. Now, of course, it's a complete disaster. The old friends bring out triggering scenarios for both Griff and River. And the thing is that their true real world was the connection that they shared in the like wilds of Alaska. Not like fancy date night restaurants and going to exclusive clubs, that sort of thing. The problem is that they're using relationship criteria from their screwed up pasts to judge their current situation. So, of course, it doesn't work out. But they realize that, far too late, and they end up breaking things off. And they each take time apart to do some soul searching. River about his family history and his public persona and how it relates to his work. And then Griff about how he interacts with the outside world, especially as it concerns his family's tour business in Alaska. Eventually, after they've kind of each separately worked through their own stuff, Griff makes his way to LA for the premiere of the film based on River's book. And the things they each want and need out of life are actually, far more aligned than they first realized. They can, in fact, live, love, and work surrounded by the nature that each gives them so much joy. So, as I mentioned, it's super hard for me to kind of describe what was so engaging about this book because it's kind of just so normal. These guys are just so normal and real, and the conversations that they have about, mundane stuff or, deep hurtful stuff that they've, experienced in the past. I thought it was all really interesting. And it's what pulled me in, sort of like the deep connection that they each shared. And that's really just hard for me to express because it's something so visceral and emotional when you're going through the book. Mm-hmm. So I recommend this first book in the series. I think I really cannot wait for the next one because I think this really sets a really powerful and interesting precedent. And I think the rest of these books are going to be exceptional as well. Something I also want to quickly mention before we move on is that some people are calling this book a slow burn. And I don't personally think Arctic Heat qualifies as a slow burn because I think in general, when it comes to a slow burn romance, the author is deliberately and purposefully teasing out the romantic threads of a book. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's the case here. While the relationship between our two characters in the story certainly does not move at a lightning fast pace, I think it moves at a deliberate pace and an intelligent pace and at the pace that works for Griff and River. Mm-hmm. Now, this book is actually longer than your average romance. I looked it up online. This book runs about 95,000 words, Whoa. Which is, in fact, roughly twice as long as most of the books that I've been reading for the last year and a half. Mm-hmm. So as I was reading the story, I was aware that it was taking me longer than usual to get through the story, but I don't think that was a bad thing. Like I said, I personally really connected to Griff and River and their individual journeys. So I highly recommend Arctic Heat by Annabeth Albert.
I like a lot of what you said about this book, with them being just normal guys. I mean, that fits in so much with your nice guy thing anyway, mm-hmm. but the normal part of it, and this was just essentially life happening in a way. I like that vibe in romances quite a lot, and it's 180 degrees from what we're about to talk about with my book this week. I read book 3 in Gregory Ashe's Hazard in Somerset series, which is called Paternity Case. Where this for you really carried no angst at all in your book, mm-hmm. I had all the angst over here. Of the 3 books in this series that I've read so far, this one made me the most tense and in a lot of ways the most upset just by what was happening here and what this mystery involved. And we'll be talking about trigger warnings before we get to the end of the review as well. But to kind of dive in, Gregory's way with mystery thrillers and the slowest burn romance ever. We're in book 3, and these two are still not a couple yet. That's slow burn, and it's very deliberate. But these elements keep drawing me back, too. After dealing with the Clue-like mystery that happened over Thanksgiving and transposition, in this book, the action now moves to Christmas, so we've clicked just a few weeks forward. In an interesting turn of events, and this is something I think only Gregory could really concoct, the book opens with Emery Hazard and John Henry Somerset on a double date. Now, readers of this series know that this cannot end well, because this date involved Hazard and his boyfriend Nico, and Summers has brought his estranged wife Cora, and they're attempting to have this meal together. Your facial expressions right now are exactly what's wrong with this scene. Saying that this scene is uncomfortable is an understatement, and yet it's the perfect scene to begin this book, because it sets up the back and forth sniping that Hazard and Somerset do throughout the story. The mystery in Paternity Case revolves around an incident that occurs at the Somerset family home. Summers' father calls him away from dinner to help with the problem, and when Hazard and Summers arrive at the scene, they discover a very high and quite naked Santa causing issues at the party, and before they can sort out why this is happening, a teenage girl is dead, Summers' father is shot multiple times, and the Santa is killed after being taken into police custody. And very shortly thereafter, because Santa's dead, technically the case is closed and Hazard and Somerset have been told to leave it alone. Now, nothing's ever as what it seems in a Hazard and Somerset book, and the reason and motive for the shootings is really disturbing and rather extraordinary at the same time. Gregory has concocted his most twisted mystery of the series here, and it shines an even brighter spotlight on the shady goings-on in the Warreda Good Old Boy network. I'm always stunned at how Gregory reveals the whodunits, and this one just continually blew my mind. There were just little explosions happening all over my head as I listened to this book. Now, we know from previous books that Summers and Hazard have a very complicated past, both together and separately. Significant details are finally laid out in this book, and we find out why Hazard had to leave St. Louis, which I'll admit was not as shocking as I expected, but it doesn't prevent those in power in Warreda from trying to capitalize on it. We also get more of what happened to these boys in high school, and this is one of the areas that really upset me. Much more about Summers' senior year came to light, and the feelings that he has for Hazard continue to have such a major impact on the things that he's doing in the present. And I have no doubt this is all going to reverberate even more in the following books. Many authors would really look to dump out all this information about their past much faster. And I really like how Gregory has pulled this through 3 books so far, because it really lands with so much impact where and when he chooses to drop these nuggets of information. It's masterful backstory. And it's like a traffic accident, because it's so uncomfortable to witness and you just cannot look away from it. The way that he's done this, it keeps me glued to the proverbial page, which of course I'm listening on audio, so call that what you will. I can't wait to see what gets revealed next, and the far-reaching implications of almost every line of the book are just like, it's crazy, people. It's crazy. Now, I have to call out some side characters here, too. One in particular. Summers' mother, Grace Elaine, has been mentioned in some previous books, but we really see her in this one. She is every bit the Southern matriarch who you do not want to cross. She is sugary sweet in one moment, and then when you're one-on-one with her, she can just turn around and claw your eyes out. The cat and mouse game that she plays with Hazard in this book, equally parts highly entertaining and very disturbing. She goes to great lengths to protect her son, her family, and what she believes is right, while all the while truly being a terrible person. She made me shudder because I knew people like her from growing up in the South. They're real and they're scary. Now, back to the mystery. It's really so impossible for me to easily talk about this without revealing too much. Suffice to say, of the 3 books so far, this mystery has been the most disturbing because of the ramifications for the teenage characters involved. Not only the girl who's killed, but 2 of her friends who are swept up in the drama. anyone who is potentially triggered by abusive parents or child abuse and similar issues would be advised to proceed cautiously with this book. And I can't couch it like you did your trigger warnings. This one can get you. And as I said, this was like the most emotionally impactful of these books so far for me. All of that said, I am ready to move on to book 4. I have no doubts that the things that were planted in this book will matter even more in what follows, and I can't wait to see where it ultimately ends. Quickly to note, I did the audiobook, and of course, Tristan James continues to do an outstanding job with his narration of this series. So I highly recommend Paternity Case, which is book 3 in the Hazard and Somerset series by Gregory Ashe, and certainly go back and read the previous ones if you haven't picked them up yet.
Want to hang out with us between shows? Check us out on Facebook. You never know what we might post. News about book sales, bonus video content, and maybe even a live broadcast or two. Like us today at facebook.com/biggayfictionpodcast and see what we get up to next.
So Lisa's back with us with 4 great books to recommend. If speculative fiction is your thing, these might be the reads that you are looking for. Very happy to welcome Lisa back to the podcast. How's everything going?
It's going great. I'm always glad to be here and chat with you.
Excited to hear what you're going to be adding to my TBR this month, because that always happens. I know you're kicking off with one of our mutually favorite authors, Gregory Ashe.
Yes.
Just before we got into this, I reviewed Paternity Case and, of course, adored it and had my mind blown. But you're talking about a brand new book in the Hollow Folk series.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I started reading the Hollow Folk series first, and then went into Hazard and Somerset. So I kind of went the opposite way of the way you would go if you decide to read the Hollow Folk series. But
and I'm definitely going to, because you've sold this one as well as you did Hazard and Somerset.
Yeah, and it's just so it's such a great it's a great departure from Hazard and Somerset if you're looking for the broad range of Gregory Ashe's storytelling abilities. This is a series that takes place in a small town, and he always picks small towns that I can't pronounce. Vapese, Wyoming. We'll just say it's that. And this small town in Wyoming, it's one of those places where you can just picture it in your mind. This is not a metropolitan area. This is small town, small business. Everybody knows everybody else. It's kind of a bleak tumbleweeds in the wind sort of place. And so you can really do so much imagining of what this place is like. But yet there's this huge paranormal surrounding in the story that Gregory just fleshes out so beautifully. And so Mr. Big Empty in the Hollow Folk series is kind of what Vi has dubbed this paranormal entity. And it revolves around the disappearance of kids. So kids keep disappearing in the town. Some of them return, some of them do not. The ones who return always come back with some sort of ability, some sort of supernatural paranormal ability. Now, Vi's ability was not acquired in that way, but he is psychic. So he is a real target of this paranormal entity. So amongst all of the supernatural goings on, one of the things that I really love about this, and if you love characterization and just really being able to get into a character's head and pick them apart, I think Gregory does that so well. So Vi is a character who, the name Vi, first of all, fits this character so much because he fights for everything. His upbringing was horrible. His parents were abusive. His dad is a drug addict. He's in a foster home right now. I will throw out sort of a warning for anybody who might be considering this. Vi suffers from depression. he self-harms. There is some suicidal ideation here. There's drug abuse, not by Vi, but by one of the characters who is one of Vi's two love interests. So it's not a soft feel-good teen fiction story. But among all of the paranormal goings on is Vi's it's the man versus himself sort of theme running through it. And he does have two very viable love interests in Austin Miller and Emmett Bradley. And these two boys could not be more different if they tried. They just, Austin is the boy next door and Emmett is the bad boy. But both of them encompass so much of what Vi is, because he's like the sinner and the saint kind of all rolled into one. And so it goes through Austin's, Emmett's, and another group of not only kids, not only teenagers, but adults as well, coming together and trying to fight off this paranormal entity. So it's just, the action scenes are just absolutely just riveting. The action and suspense is so great. And the suspense from the reader's standpoint of how much more torture can these characters take before Gregory gives them some sort of a break. I'm like, I'll send you my therapy bill, Gregory Ashe. Thank you so much. Because he really does punish these guys so much. And in the end, there are just still no easy answers. There's just, it's still just a one day at a time kind of thing. Vi still loves both Austin and Emery, or excuse me, now I'm getting my characters mixed up, Austin and Emmett. And he just, he wrapped the series up so beautifully, and it ended really in the only way it could. And anybody looking for the happily ever after or happy for now ending might not be satisfied so much, but the way he ended it, it just couldn't have gone any other way, because I think in my review, I called, Austin the sword and Emmett the shield, and Vi is the warrior. And when you go into battle, you can't go without either a sword or a shield and survive. Mm-hmm. Right. So he just needed these two boys in very different ways for very different reasons. And so it's just really, it's another really masterful series and another excellent job, just a job well done by one of my favorite authors. So definitely I recommend The Mortal Sleep. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah. Hollow Folk is high on my TBR, but I'm determined to get through Hazard and Somerset before he releases the next one. Yeah. Well, I think he's got a new series he's working on now, and then might go back then out immediately after that to John Henry and Emery. But one of the things I wish I kind of, you have to be careful what you wish for. But I sort of wish that Gregory would consider somewhere down the road doing a little short story with Vi, 5-10 years later to kind of show us where he is. But sometimes things are better left unknown too. Right. I'll just in my head, I'll think, and he lived happily ever after. You'll put Vi in the right spot. Yeah. He's got a lot of things to work through, a lot of complications in his life, and he's gonna have a hard road ahead. But he's just such a great character. Triggered my savior complex like no other character. I just wanted to protect him. Now, you also took a little adventure with a new-to-you author.
I did. Author M.A. Grant. She has written a series, book one, it's actually going to be a trilogy, the Darkest Court trilogy, and book one is Prince of Air and Darkness. This author just blew me away. It was the first of this group of books that I'm going to be talking about today that I read, and it was literally at that time the best book that I had read so far this year, and it might still be. I don't know. I've read some really amazing books in the last couple of weeks, but. Prince of Aran Darkness is set in the court of the Seelie and the Unseelie. So the Fae is very involved. It is a new adult. It's set in a school of magic, a university of magic, and Phineas Smith is the only human in this school of magic. He, however, has a power that he is trying to learn how to harness and control, and so he has been taken under the wing, so to speak, of Prince Rourkeline, who's a prince of the Unseelie court, of the Dark Court, and it's a very enemies to lovers sort of. I mean, they just butt heads. And Rourke, Phineas's history with Rourke's mother is very dark, and so Rourke had sort of taken it upon himself, probably a little bit out of guilt over what his mother had done to Finn, to watch over him. And you never make a bargain with the Fae. You never make promises to the Fae, because it always comes back to haunt you. But Queen Mab, this is another thing. This series, this world has such a pastiche of characters, Shakespearean references, just different, there's a kraken and there's a satyr and there's, it's just all of this wonderful mishmash of legends and beings and characters. And M.A. Grant just wrote this really amazing adventure of just anxiety. It gave me anxiety again, because, there is just so much danger and so much at stake and so much drama. And throughout this, she builds this very, very believable relationship between Finn and Rourke. And it's one of those, I can't fall in love with you sort of things, because bad things will happen and then they fall in love. And guess what? Bad things happened. But it doesn't leave readers on a bad cliffhanger or in a very negative place. She just really brought everything around at the end to bait that hook and make me so anxious for book 2, which is it comes out in August from Karina. So it's another book that I'm really, really looking forward to, and I'm spectacularly excited about both this author and the series. So Prince of Aran Darkness, if you like speculative fiction that goes into, urban fantasy, paranormal, fairy tale mythology, I can't recommend it enough. It's great.
That's a great thing to be spectacularly excited.
Yes, I so am.
That is so awesome to feel that way about something. And you don't have to wait that long, because August will be here before we know it.
I know. That's one of the nice things about kind of happening onto an author and a book that you had absolutely no expectations about whatsoever when you went into it, is finding it maybe a little after the book came out and not having to wait so long for the next one. So, yeah.
Now, I'm excited to find this next one on your list, because you were so excited for Hailey Turner back when we talked at the top of the year and what you were looking forward to. So was this new book everything you wanted? Everything I could have asked for and more. So the book that's just recently came out is the sequel to her release last year, book 1 in the Soulbound series, which is called A Fairy of Bones and Gold. And this book is called All Souls Near Nigh, which... You talk about titling 2 books just so beautifully. This world is again, it's just another unbelievable
urban fantasy, just every sort of mythology, from the Greek pantheon to Native American spiritualism. This one goes into Aztec gods, and it's just, she's created this amazing New York City, where Patrick Collins, who is a special agent with the Supernatural Operations Agency, is a mage, and he gets himself into some investigations that are just incredible. Okay, so there's always just lots of danger and, lots of action and murdery bits, and he's dealing with gods and goddesses, and everything just seems to be going against him, and he's just got to fight tooth and nail for every single bit of progress that he makes in every investigation. And he is partnered with his love interest happens to be an alpha wolf who is a lone wolf. He is a packless wolf in New York City, and Jonathan DeVere. And so this is a lot of this second book deals with them kind of starting to make their own pack family. And it's just, there's a lot of just really bonding and warmth between Jonathan and Patrick and the two people who become part of their pack. There's that warmth amongst all of this action and danger and suspense and imagination. Hailey Turner's imagination is just off the charts, and she can tell a story so beautifully that, you get to the end of a chapter and you think, okay, it's time to stop reading. No, it's not. You just have to keep going until you fall asleep with your eyes open, or you're waking up with your Kindle dark in front of your face because you've fallen asleep because you couldn't put the book down. So All Souls Near Nigh, the Soulbound series, is just amazing urban fantasy, speculative fiction. She's just, I'd heard a lot of buzz about her from her Metahuman Files series. And I haven't read that series yet, but boy, do I want to go back and read it, because she has impressed the heck out of me with the Soulbound series. So this is one of those that I'm not sure when the next book is coming out, because I snatched this one up as soon as it was available. So I'm looking forward to the next book in this series really a lot, because there are some big things still on the horizon happening. And one of the things I love about a series that's set in like a New York City, a place where I'm very familiar with, in Manhattan, is that you get that sense of, when you're in Manhattan, there's almost this claustrophobic feel, because everything is just so right here, right in front of your face, and everything is pressing down, and there's this oppressive humanity everywhere. And so I love that kind of claustrophobic feel bleeds over into the story and the setting and the writing. She's just really, really a hugely talented author.
I've got this one pretty high on my TBR, the series, actually, because, again, you add to my TBR relentlessly. But I totally know what you mean about, like, reading while you're falling asleep, too. I get to the point where it's like, okay, I have to put this down because I'm not really reading every word anymore.
Oh,
and
exactly.
I'm going to miss something.
Yeah, or you read the same paragraph over and over and over. I can't tell you how many times I've woken up the next morning and gone to the book and thought, I had no idea what I read. And so you have to go back a couple of pages yet to refresh your memory. Yeah, the hazards of being a dedicated reader. Exactly.
But it's a sign of a good book, too. You're like, I don't want to put it down, but I must.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is one of those unput-downable kind of series. She just does a phenomenal job with it.
Fantastic. I'm glad that one paid off for you, because you were so excited for it. So
it absolutely did.
I know you've got one more for us.
I do. One more. Last one. Again, it's paranormal, urban fantasy, spec fic. Jen Burke is an author I had never read before, but had heard amazing things about. She's got a sci-fi series that she writes with author Kelly Jensen that I had just heard nothing but phenomenal things about. So when her book, Not Dead Yet, came out, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot and see, just see what all of the fuss is about. And boy, was it earned. Not Dead Yet is book one in the series. It's set in Toronto, so it's a little bit of a different, for this American, it's a little bit of a different setting for me. I've never been to Toronto, so it is a story where she really bends the concept of paranormal. Her main character, Wes Cooper, is not quite dead, but he's not quite all the way alive either. So he can go ghost, but yet he's still sort of human. So it's just this very fun. I just kept thinking about Miracle Max in Princess Bride. He's mostly dead, means slightly alive. Well, he's mostly alive, but only slightly dead. So he can kind of slip the veil between our world and the other side. So he is what a very fancy word for a thief. He's a recovery specialist. So people hire him to recover items. For example, an item that might have ended up with the wrong spouse in a divorce. And so the spouse decides that they're not going to give back the property that is rightfully that person. So he goes in and just kind of 5-finger discounts it. He lifts it while he's ghosted. And so it's not really thieving, but yet it is. So this recovery specialist, Wes Cooper, witnesses a murder while he's in the veil. And it's a murder that scares the bejeebers out of him because what he's seeing should not be possible. So he ends up contacting his ex-love interest, Detective Hudson Rojas. Now, the great thing about this is that he and that Wes and Hudson had dated back in the 80s. So here we are, 33 years after their breakup. Wes is still the same, looks exactly the same age that he did when he died back in the 1930s. And so you see the 33 years later and you're wondering, wow, that's going to be quite an age gap romance for Wes and Hudson, right? Because Hudson is, in his late 50s, early 60s or whatever, and Wes still looks like he's 28. So the way that she weaves the believability and the plausibility of this romance was like, I did not see that coming. And what better feeling when you think, oh, this book is, you're reading books and you get the familiar tropes and you get some of the beauty of reading is the familiarity, going into a book and knowing what you're going to get out of it in the end. But I always love when an author can do something that just was like, whoa, good job. You fooled me here, and I didn't see that coming. So they begin to, it's a very, again, and such an antagonistic relationship between the two of them in the beginning because their breakup was not, they broke up due to irreconcilable differences, but it was not a lovely breakup, okay? Wasn't clean and tidy. So you get all of this antagonism and anger, kind of resentment from what happened in the past, and yet there's this underlying tension between them that you can feel. Wes is still very much attracted to Hudson, and you wonder why Hudson's being such a poop, and he's being not nice to Wes, and so it's lovely that she incorporated the tension of the murder mystery with the tension of their relationship. And so it all comes together in such a beautiful way to really invest you in a very visceral, emotional way and how she's going to make this all play out. So so not dead yet. You get murder mystery. You get unresolved relationship tension. You get the enemies, the lovers to enemies to lovers vibe. You get all of the paranormal, and then and a very very beautifully romantic resolution to it all, which is, again, sometimes, when you're reading romance, of course, you go into it expecting that at least at the very minimum, the happy for now. But sometimes things happen that just really touch your heart in a really special way. And that's kind of what happened in this book. When it all came together, it was like, wow. Jen just really did an amazing job of resolving everything. So that book came out in February, and the next book comes out in June, again from Carina Press. I feel like I'm giving Carina Press a lot of love today. So the Not Dead Yet series, if you're looking for a book that just gives a really great twist to the paranormal ghost trope, that is this book. It's just a lot of fun with some really fun surprises and a great, still happy for now, but still a very lovely romantic resolution to all the tension that she puts her readers through at the beginning.
Fantastic. 4 just tremendous books. And let me just go put all those on my TBR now for the ones that aren't already.
Yeah, this was my theme, speculative fiction day, because all 4 of these books just really are stellar books. 4 of my favorite books so far this year, hands down.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing these 4, and hopefully the readers will find something great to get them through the springtime.
Yeah, I hope so. Even any one of these would even make a great summer read. If you're hanging out on the beach or just, sitting out in the sun and you want something great to read, all 4 of these books I just thought were absolutely spectacular. So really fun reading.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you back in a few months.
That sounds great. I hope to have at least 4 more.
Thanks very much to Lisa for those recommendations. As you heard within this segment, she certainly added to my TBR, and hopefully she brought out some stuff for you to read as well.
Yeah. So guys, before we leave, did you know that the Big Gay Fiction Podcast has its very own Patreon page? Well, we definitely do. Patreon is a way for fans to engage with all kinds of artists and writers and musicians and podcasters as well. It's a great way to support the kinds of creative content that you enjoy the most. And if you're curious about what kind of bonus material we deliver to our fans every month, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. Now, coming up next week, Laquette joins us to talk about her newest book, Under His Protection. And let me tell you, we got our hands on an early copy. I have read it, and seriously, mind blown. I love this book so very much, and I cannot wait to tell you all about it. So please come back next week.
Yeah, he has been raving about it while he's been reading it this week. It's really great, and I'm looking forward to talking to Laquette.
Yeah. So guys, remember, no matter where life takes you, the journey will always be sweeter when you have a book. Until next time, everyone, please keep turning those pages and keep reading.
For detailed show notes and links to everything discussed in this episode, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com. New episodes are available every Monday at all major podcast distributors. You can also find us on YouTube. I'm Derek McLean. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.